Welcome to the Anti-Noise Experience podcast, Endurance Noise, Random Musings. It's Tuesday, 8/11/2020. And of course, if it's August, it's hot here in Bakersfield. We'll be over 100, but not nearly as hot as it is at Badwater this past day. And Harvey Lewis just set the FKT going from Badwater Basin to the top of Mount Whitney. I imagine he's almost down now back to Whitney Portal, or hopefully so. But he supposedly did definitely get the FKT that Marshall Ulrich set almost 30 years ago. And so I thought I would talk about this topic, dropping science, called Should Athletes Avoid Salt? And obviously Harvey running through the desert, 120 plus degrees. He was probably losing lots of fluids and lots of electrolytes, aka salt. And so this article that I saw on Training Peaks, and there'll be a link in the show notes, talks about that issue. This article's got some sciencey stuff in it, but for the most part, there's still, like as always, not a whole lot of answers. But, salt has a serious PR problem. Salt's been linked with the rising causes of hypertension or high blood pressure in the population at large, because hypertension is a huge risk factor in all manner of nasty cardiovascular diseases. Salt has, by association, taken a great deal of flack for its alleged contribution to this growing issue. And, as I've often talked, I definitely have high blood pressure, and I'm sure part of it might be my salt intake, partly probably genetic. In fact, right now, I took my blood pressure medicine and took my Lasix, so I spend most of the mornings feeling really, really drowsy and having to pee a lot because the Lasix is a diuretic. Getting rid of the excess fluid. I know here in Bakersfield, it's really hot and I'm out sweating. I mean, shoot, we got up this morning at 5:30 in the morning and it was 79 degrees. But thankfully it's a dry heat, not that humidity that the Jester's been suffering through the past few weeks. He's gone to Kentucky, Kansas, Georgia, and he's been finding out what humidity is all about. Of course, I told him, hey, it'll help you if you do the 3,100-mile race, because that's in New York City. And it's definitely toasty there. So yeah, probably people have too much salt in your diet. I know when I go out hiking or running hard, my hat will get wet and then it dries off and you can see all kinds of salt on it. So the article goes on to say, taking at face value, there's an appealing, simple reason why this association between salt intake and hypertension has been drawn. Boils down to the fact that as you consume more and more salt, your body tends to retain more and more fluid in the blood to maintain acceptable sodium concentrations. This has the effect of expanding total blood volume and therefore acutely increasing blood pressure, elevating BP in the short term. And as an aside, this is precisely why we recommend using saltier drink in immediate buildup to hot or long races, so that you start with the increased blood volume before a period of heavy sweating. And as I've talked about before on this podcast, they've done research now showing that when you train in the heat, it increases your blood volume. And so, is this a cheat? Probably not. I wouldn't recommend drinking salty drinks beforehand, but, putting on some more fluids, but then you just get waterlogged. So it's kind of a, a Hobson's choice. Which one do you do? So it says, we can accept that consuming too little sodium is problematic as consuming too much for health and blood pressure. Conversation around necessary salt intake for athletes starts to get quite interesting. The bottom line of sodium intake for athletes, or anyone who sweats a lot during the course of their day, is that you should strive to be roughly in line with your individual sodium losses as a minimum. To use an analogy from the field of game theory, sodium consumption should ideally be a zero-sum gain. Intake should essentially cancel out output, and therefore, in theory, the effect of the overall sodium balance. As a result, blood pressure and other homeostatic measurements should be a net zero. And yeah, that's just kind of what one needs to do. I know a few years ago, salt tablets and all that were all the rage. If you listen to any podcasts or picked up any magazines, it was constantly talking about taking salt tablets and constantly about, setting your watch to take them so that you didn't bonk and stuff like that. I used to sort of use them. I used to tell people, I could always tell when I was maybe a little off because my stomach would get queasy, and it seemed like if I took a salt tablet, there's a couple of different versions out there, it would kind of calm it down, but I haven't had to do that very much as I used to. And of course, I'm out here doing 3-4 hours exercise a day, so I think I'm taking in and taking out basically the same. So as always, it's, trial and error, hit and miss, figuring out what works best for you, because, we are 1 out of 7 billion people, so everybody's slightly different. So just try and see what works for you. That's why you need to simulate race conditions And, I often see that too. Like people sign up for races that are going to be hot or going to be all throughout the day. And yet on the weekends, I mean, I get it. You go out and want to run early so you can get home and take care of the things you need to take care of. But I see it all the time where people are planning on doing all day 50-mile, 100-mile races, but they get up at 5 in the morning and do their running from 5 to 8 in the morning. So yes, maybe you have family matters in life that you have to do that, but you're also you're running in the perfect conditions. And then come race day, when you're out there running in the middle of the day, it's not so good. I see lots of people doing really long, 7-8 hour training runs. And, what better is like do an hour or two in the morning and then go out in the evening so you can get used to the different weather conditions. And then you can work on your salt intake and your fluid intake. So as always, stay healthy, be boring, not epic.